Tonight on Chronicle, they're full of history and architectural beauty and sit on some of the priciest real estate on the coast.
It's a late Gothic revival church. It's built out of mostly stones that were dragged up from Rye Beach. And there are, on each side of the church, outside in the exterior, are 5 stones in the design of a cross.
The chapels by the sea. A pipe organ encounter.
20 years ago, when this whole thing got started, the idea was that there weren't enough young people playing the organ, and this was an effort to try to change that.
Why teens came from across the country to pay homage to the king of musical instruments.
It's called the King of Instruments, that's the nickname, and it can play so loudly, and that's what the kids really like.
Plus, Fritz Weatherby's New Hampshire.
He had a lovely girlfriend until his dad stole her. I'll tell you the story on the Hampshire Chronicle.
That's next on Chronicle. Well, they call this behind us up there the bride's balcony because so many beautiful ladies have had their photo taken right there on their special day.
Renowned for its magnificent location, perched high in the Ossipee Mountains with breathtaking sunsets, spectacular waterfalls, and panoramic views of Lake Winnipesaukee. This balcony belongs to the Castle in the Clouds.
And what a fabulous setting for a wedding. You know, they've had 39 so far this year. Really is a stunning location to be.
Can you imagine the backdrop? It's fantastic.
Great photos, too.
Yeah, it sure is, no doubt about it.
Now, did you know that some consider September the new June, at least in the wedding business anyway? And among other places that are busy this month are 3 small seasonal chapels on the Seacoast, but their stories go way beyond wedding bells.
St. Andrews by the Sea, Union, and Little Harbor chapels are chock full of history and architectural beauty and sit on some of the priciest real estate on the coast. And all 3 still hold Sunday services in the summer.
Jennifer Crompton visited them and tells of a history that got rolling with the arrival of the railroad. Beachwear was altogether different, but the intent then was the same as it is now. Folks fleeing the heat of the city for the cool air and water of our seacoast. The summer ritual began as soon as newfangled transportation made it possible. And by the late 1800s, farms had become boarding houses and hotels rose up along the shore to meet the demand, at least a half dozen in Rye alone.
The Ocean House was the biggest. It was magnificent, 4 stories. It only lasted from 1862 to 1872, but in its time, it was incredibly famous. Rye was on a par with Newport.
In addition to their trunks of formal clothing, many also packed their religion. 3 chapels were built to suit the seasonal visitors, chapels that remain standing, only their patrons changing with the times. The first was St. Andrews by the Sea, an Episcopal church built in Rye in 1876, well before some of the wealthier visitors began building estates that dominate the coast there now. Summer folk would often arrive from nearby hotels by stagecoach, stepping off near the Lich Gate that still serves as its entrance, one of only 2 like it left in the world. St. Andrews is listed on the National Register of Historic Places.
It's a late Gothic revival church. It's built out of mostly stones that were dragged up from Rye Beach. And there are, on each side of the church, outside in the exterior, are 5 stones in the design of a cross.
Inside, the ceiling is built like the hull of a boat. A grand round Tiffany window in back and many more surround lines of pews that are still packed on summer Sundays. Barely a mile south in North Hampton, the non-denominational Union Chapel opened a year later in 1877. Now often referred to as Fuller Chapel, though it too was there before the Fuller family built their grand homes around it. It's a country church, small and wooden, painted a light gray, with conic windows and a Tiffany above the altar. Quaint in every way.
If the group was svelte, I think you would squeeze in about 100. Comfortably, 85 and 90 would do it in the pews.
In 1902, Arthur Carey of Boston built Little Harbor Chapel on the grounds of his wooded summer back channel estate in Portsmouth. Simply designed and made of brick, open to all, as it hosted what were called undenominational services.
A lot of these people had come from formal religious backgrounds. So even though it was very nourishing spiritually as far as nature goes, to be by the water and be away from those hot cities, they wanted some sort of formal spiritual nourishment.
And it continues. All three still hold services in the summer with a different clergy member every Sunday, and all are very popular wedding locations. Stunning architecture set near the sea.
We have 2 Tiffany windows. The Hoffman window in the rear of the church is a Tiffany window, and we have one other. We also have a window that was dedicated to Ogden Nash, who came here for 25 years, and he read the lessons every Sunday that Bob Gollage was a priest here. Amazing story. And his window he signed, and it has a replica of his eyeglasses. And those were the kinds of people that came here. They were artists, poets, writers, congressmen, senators, governors, just a lot of really, quote, well-heeled people who wanted a summer chapel where they could be sure to come every summer when they were here in their summer homes.
People came from St. Louis, from Washington. There were ambassadors. It was just what I call the old guard.
Bobby Gollage's husband was an Episcopal priest who served over 40 summers here. She was surprised at the formality of the earliest years.
My daughter, still talks about having to learn to curtsy every day on the beach, and the boys had to bow to every one of the people that had spread out their blankets.
St. Andrews appears to have changed with the times. A quarter century ago, St. Andrews began hosting a different Episcopal priest to hold services on each of the summer Sundays.
I have invited priests from England, California, Atlanta, really all over the country.
And over the years, the variety of patrons has grown as well. It's a more welcoming place. Generations of locals have taken root here alongside summer residents, their children and grandchildren, its future, baptized and married here. For Lee Gray, all 3 sons.
It's just, well, you walk in and you fall in love with it. It's just absolutely beautiful and has so much history behind it, and very, very meaningful to us and to our 3 sons.
When St. Andrews began, it was really set up just for the summer people, and the people who lived in town here were the people who took care of the summer people. And now that they're gone, it's the people who were taking care of the people who took care of St. Andrews who are now coming to church here. So it's sort of evolved.
We can't wait for the season to open, and so sorry when it's closed.
The chapels lock their doors at the end of the wedding season, but remain there for the viewing, reopening summer after summer. Chapels built long ago, still nourishing visitors to the coast.
Coming up, Thou Shalt Not Covet Thy Son's Girlfriend.
Coming up next.
To just play in awesome spaces, is very cool as opposed to my living room at home, where it was much easier to just go watch TV or something.
This message is for Brad Toll from his wife Sue. She says, "Happy 50th birthday to my best friend. I love being your wife," she says, "and your fishing partner. laughing with you and just enjoying your company. You are a wonderful husband, and I love you very much. That's about as sweet as it gets. Hey, if you get a shout-out you'd like to give someone special, go to WMUR.com/Chronicle and send it our way. It's a gift like no other, and you can't beat the price.
Up next, the king of instruments.
When you think of organ music, you probably picture massive pipes rising up from the altar of a church. When you think of organists, probably a sweet older lady playing familiar hymns might come to mind. Well, have we got news for you? Most organists are men, and the pipe organ has a growing appeal among young musicians. Amy Covino spent a day at a pipe organ encounter where for a week, 3 dozen teenagers delved into a very complex instrument and had fun doing it.
What you see here may turn everything you think you know about pipe organs and those who play them upside down. This is summer camp, where teenagers are immersed in Brahms and Bach instead of lake water and mosquitoes.
Here's our moment right here. Actually, we're getting to it early. Do you hear that?
The students come from all over the United States and Canada. So does the faculty. The location of Pipe Organ Encounter varies from year to year. The week-long camp costs a mere $450. That's food, lodging, and instruction. The bulk of the expense is covered by a grant from the American Guild of Organists, who are clearly striving to build future generations of organ players.
I got my